Hey everybody, this is TJR. Comic book artist Neal Adams passed away a few days ago. I was kind of surprised to hear this. This is not something I was expecting. Apparently, he died from a sepsis. And I was alerted to this fact by my partner, Superfan, who kind of said, "Hey, did you know that Neal Adams passed away?" And I said, "No, I didn't know this." And I found out that she wasn't sure who Neal Adams was. In fact, she at first had him confused with Douglas Adams, who's best known for writing the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. And I said, no, not the same guy. Neal Adams was a very influential comic book artist, probably one of the most influential 20th century comic book artists, right after Jack Kirby. And so I kind of told her a little bit about his work and showed her some samples of what his work was like. And I thought I would take this same approach with this video, that I would make this video for the person who may not know that much about who Neal Adams was. Neal Adams, you have to understand, before he came into the comic book industry, comic book art was, for the most part, even with superhero books, kind of flat and two-dimensional looking. Neal Adams brought a sense of photorealism to adventure comics and to superhero comics in particular, that no one had really seen before in this genre. In fact, the closest example I could think of prior to him would have been Alex Raymond, who beautifully illustrated the Flash Gordon comic strips of the 1930s and 40s. When Neal Adams drew a superhero, they looked like they could be real, like they could be real people. And he brought a sense of realism that just previously had not been there. In fact, his work was oftentimes considered too photorealistic for most publishers when he first tried to break into the comics industry. For a while there, he was drawing the Ben Casey newspaper comic strip, which was based on the popular Medical Doctors TV series at the time. And as he began to work his way into comic books, at first, he was actually given Jerry Lewis, The Adventures of Jerry Lewis, to draw by DC. Eventually, he was put on the assignment to do covers for a number of DC books: Batman, Superman, Brave and Bold, which was a team-up book that featured Batman. And the publishers began to realize that when the books had his covers on them, even though his artwork was not on the interior of the book, those issues would sell better because of his covers. Eventually, he was given a chance to do the character Batman within the pages of the Batman team-up book, Brave and the Bold, which featured Batman and another DC comic book superhero teamed up together. And this, I think, is where I would show my first example to you. If you look at this one issue here, Brave and Bold, from 1968, and it's an issue that features artwork by Mike Sekowsky and Jim Mooney. And there's nothing wrong with their artwork, but it's very flat, very two-dimensional. And you compare a year later, where you got an issue here of Teen Titans from 1969, not Teen Titans, excuse me, The Brave and the Bold, which features Batman and the Teen Titans. And just look at this page here. Notice the difference between these two artists and how Batman looks. There is such a level of realism and grittiness. Neal Adams once said in an interview, "I didn't really do anything to Batman except draw him the way I thought he should be drawn." And I thought about this, and I thought he's right, because in the beginning, the same writers were writing the book prior to him drawing, yet the book had a totally different look. Once he started drawing it, even with the same writer, everything changed. The whole perspective on the character changed. Eventually, Neal Adams would team up with Denny O'Neil in the actual Batman comic. And the two of them would have this, what is now considered a very celebrated run on the book. They also worked on the character Green Lantern as well together. And in fact, it was in the pages of Green Lantern that Neal Adams and Denny O'Neil created the character of John Stewart, who was the Black Green Lantern, one of DC's first Black superheroes. This character would eventually become so popular that he became the Green Lantern of the animated Justice League TV series. But still, Neal Adams is best known for his work on Batman. When he drew Batman, he was incredibly acrobatic. His cape would just billow like it was this giant tent in some cases. And the action would just move off the page. Here's one issue in particular, a sequence where Batman is swinging, avoiding an explosion, And as you look at these panels, you can just see the movement. It's incredibly cinematic. It really looks like you're watching a movie. And I showed these to Superfan, and she said the difference between these illustrators prior and his illustrations during the late 60s and early 70s is it looks like I'm looking at a Batman movie. And she's referring to the modern Batman films. The thing is, though, is that it took decades for motion pictures to catch up to what Neal Adams was doing in the late 60s and early 70s. Along with his work in comics, of course, Neal Adams was also a huge proponent for comic book creator rights, for the rights of artists and writers to get paid what they're worth. Perhaps one of the most significant accomplishments that he can lay claim to within his career was helping Superman creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. These two artists, the artist and writer who created Superman, these two men were paid on the Superman book until the late 1940s. After that, they didn't see a dime, and their bylines were removed. They no longer received credit for the character. And at the time when Warner Brothers was working on the Superman movie, Neal Adams was very instrumental in spearheading a publicity campaign to bring attention to Superman's creators. The publicity campaign worked. DC Comics, which was owned by Warner, finally gave Siegel and Shuster a retirement stipend that stayed with them for the rest of their lives to help them in their old age. And also their bylines were restored. And every piece of Superman media, be it a comic book, a cartoon, a motion picture, anytime Superman appears, you always see the credit Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And it's thanks to the efforts of Neal Adams that we see that now. And in fact, because of his efforts now, whenever you see superheroes, DC comic characters featured in a motion picture or an animated TV show or series or whatever, you see the bylines of who created these characters in the closing credits. The last thing I would say in this video is that the style that Neal Adams pioneered, this very photorealistic style, would become a style that would influence so many comic book artists to follow. So many artists would also then try to draw in a very realistic, photorealistic style, trying to make the characters look more real, more grounded. Currently on Disney Plus, there is a Moon Knight series, and Moon Knight was based on a popular Marvel comic that was drawn by an artist named Bill Sienkiewicz. Bill Sienkiewicz initially was considered a Neal Adams clone. He drew very much in the style of Neal Adams. As time would go on, he would develop his own style, which became much more abstract and lucid looking. And he became quite a unique artist in his own right and became very influential to many artists who followed him. But initially, he was heavily influenced and a huge admirer of Neal Adams. It's kind of hard to believe that artwork that was exciting and as dynamic looking as Neal Adams' artwork was at first kind of rejected by the publishers. They didn't understand what they had. It's kind of hard to believe that they couldn't envision this art making the books more popular, which they did do. It just goes to show you what a bunch of old bogeys they were at DC Comics at this time. But those are my thoughts. I hope this video helped some. And please leave a comment. As always, if you like what I do here, be sure to click like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.